Okay. All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining us tonight for the beginning of our new year of Shurim on Parashat Shavua. It's very exciting to start to learn the Torah all over again with you guys, Baruch Hashem. And every year that we redo it, we always learn new things. It's amazing. And tonight is no exception. Always you study the parasha again, you always see new things that you never knew the first time around. It's amazing, especially in Beresheet. Beresheet is like endless. It's amazing. So tonight we didn't have much time. We didn't have much of the week to prepare. Baruch Hashem, we were busy with the Chagim. But from what I was able to see, there's really a lot of things to talk about over here. The first thing that I think before we say anything, 1 second, we have a question here on Zoom. Sorry, guys, give me 1 second. Let me send the link. The link, if 1 second. Mechila. Okay. Very good. Sorry. Okay, so the first thing that I think we need to talk about is one very important subject. The idea that the Torah starts off with the fact that Hashem created the world. This idea is not so simple to a lot of people. A lot of people take issue with this subject. And they say, not so simple that Hashem created the world. They give you all other kinds of explanations. Maybe it was a big bang. Maybe it was all different types of theories. The idea that it was Hashem that created the world, a lot of people take issue with that. And they give you all different types of explanations. They say, well, there were these two big rocks that they just happened to collide and it made a certain atmosphere and that created a certain temperature and certain things that happen. I mean, I'm oversimplifying the idea, but the main point is it happened by chance. It didn't happen because of a design. It happened just like that.
Theory.
It's a theory. That's what they're trying to say. They're trying to say that this was a situation that took place and it just happened. Now, the Chovot HaLevavot writes something very important. The Chovot HaLevavot, one of the major Jewish philosophers, Rabbeinu Bachye, Ibn Pekuda, from almost 1,000 years ago, he writes, as a Jew, we have a special job to really think about this, about the creation of the world and the idea that Hashem, to make it part of our belief that it was Hashem that created the world. And he says, if you just give it a little bit of thought, you just think for a little bit of time, he says, you'll see there's no other explanation. Hey there, Isaac, welcome. He says, think about it this way. You have to look a little bit at nature. You have to look at the world around you. You have to look at the sun, the moon, the stars. You have to look at the world that we have in front of us, trees producing fruits, our own bodies. I once went to it was the Liberty Science Center or one of these places, and they had an IMAX movie. It was a very interesting thing. The IMAX movie is like it's all around you. So it takes you out like you're going into the stars, and it shows you the different galaxies that are out there in the universe. It shows you all of these, looking into infinity. Shows you so many different things. Welcome, Ariel. And you're looking there and it doesn't end. Our own solar system, we haven't been able to put anybody on any of the planets that are nearby. It's like, it's mind-boggling. The Milky Way and all the different galaxies, it's huge. So it shows you all that. And you look at that and you're like, wow, that's unbelievable. And then it zooms all the way in and it comes all the way down and it's coming down into this. There's like a little girl lying down on the grass, and then it goes into her eye, and that starts to show you her eye, and her eye, the retina, and the different things that are in her eye that make up her eye, the different muscles and tissues, and how much goes into one eyeball of a human being. It's infinite. It's, you think that out there is infinite in your own body. It's a world of it's the most complex structure that exists. It's so complex. So basically, it doesn't make sense that could just happen by itself. They say that Isaac Newton once had this conversation with somebody. Isaac Newton was a famous scientist. And Isaac Newton was once building a model of the solar system, of what he perceived to be the solar system. And somebody, another scientist, came and saw his model. And he said, wow, that's really nice and very precise and very, very beautiful. Who did this? Who made this? So Isaac Newton said to him something like, what do you mean? It was just somebody fell and slipped on a ball, and the ball landed on this piece of wood over here, and that knocked over that piece of wood over here, and that caused another ball to slip on here, and it caused this and caused that, and it made this beautiful thing. Look, it looks just like our solar system. So the guy said to him, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. How do you expect me to believe that? So he said, so that you have a hard time believing, but that the solar system and the infinite galaxies and universe, that just happened by itself, that you're okay believing, right? It's, I'm mentioning this because it's so important for us to understand that, welcome. It's so important for us to understand that when somebody claims things like that, it's so absurd, but the world gives it so much credit and so much importance. We have to be clear. This is nonsense. It's imagine like a hurricane. I'm sorry, like a tornado. Tornado flies over a junkyard, and the tornado is going over the junkyard, spinning, and the metal starts spinning in the junkyard. It's spinning in the tornado, spinning, and then at the end, the tornado is gone, and here's a Boeing 747. It's absurd. It doesn't make any sense. You know what I'm saying? Honestly, really, that's what the Chovot HaLevavot says. You have to really sit down and think about it, so that you drill into your neshama that the things that you're hearing, they don't make sense. You know what I'm saying? Honestly, you really sit down and think about it.
Why doesn't it make sense?
For somebody to make a claim that everything just not by any design at all, just things happen to collide and form something just by chance that created the most complex structures and systems that exist. That doesn't make any sense.
I think it kind of makes sense. There's all science behind it that it kind of makes sense.
Explain.
I'm not a scientist, but I'm just saying there's physics and all sorts of things that it is plausible that it kind of makes sense.
Again, I'll explain to you, yes, if you
try to understand.
could it be that a tornado would go ahead and whirl up metal from a junkyard and make a Boeing 747? I mean, I guess it's possible.
It's a little bit different.
Why is it a little bit different?
Because a Boeing is not a living, breathing thing. But other things...
That makes it even harder to make a living, breathing
but it
thing.
shows you, for example, let's just take something simple, right? Let's just say, for example, the tree, right?
Yeah.
So over time, there's science behind, for example, trees that adapt in certain environments, certain climates, or certain animals that show there's been changes throughout.
That's okay.
So
My
shows
point
you
doesn't.
taking something over 4 billion years, according to what science says. There could be adaptations and changes, and
I'm not saying that.
we can still believe that Hashem did all that.
I didn't say anything about adaptations and changes. I didn't say anything about that. I was just saying
That's
the
what science
idea.
says.
No. Well, I'm talking about a different thing. The creation of the world, the creation of the universe. That's all I'm talking about.
Yeah,
There
we
are
don't-
those many people that purport scientific views
Yeah,
say
there's a big
that
bang
it's
theory.
all by chance, all by accident, nothing by design, nothing.
Well, that's argued. Some of them
what?
say that it's not just by design, by chance. That there's a bigger force in the
That's my
that's
point.
Hashem.
That's my point.
But they still try to
That's
explain
what,
it through.
that's my point. We have to. My point is that what Beresheet is here to do, the basic concept that it's trying to give us, is to teach us that Hashem created the world. That's the main point that we're trying to bring out over here.
Yeah.
So my point that I'm trying to bring out is that when you hear views like that everything is just by accident, it has to almost get you upset. Like, that's absurd. That's ridiculous. You have to think that I'm like stupid to think that. You know what I mean? Just that. You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying. I'm just trying to think of a right way to. I mean, even we do believe in science to a certain degree.
Of course, we encourage science. We don't discourage science.
Yeah, so
I'm just trying to say, but for a scientist to conclude that it was all by accident,
I don't think they all say that it was all by accident. I don't know.
for those who do, I'm saying.
Yeah, for those who do.
That is a very strange thing to conclude. That's my point.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. So, okay. So that being said, I mean, I know that Victor Miller, Alav Shalom, used to take an apple. He used to just talk about the core of an apple. He used to talk about the seed of an apple. Sorry, guys. Let me mute you over here. So he used to talk about the seed of an apple. He would say, you know how much power is in this one seed? This one seed, you put it in the ground, it can decompose, it can become a tree, it can produce hundreds of apples, one seed. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It really is.
You
And
say
from
that,
from a piece of wood that fruit should come out, it's hard to have an explanation for that it wasn't done on purpose. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to think that it was just by accident. Do you know what I'm saying? If you're honest with yourself, you sit down and think about it. Could that really be an accident? How does this happen? Anyway, that's, I think, the idea of Beresheet, to come and to forestall those types of notions. That should be clear from the beginning. Hashem says,
Yeah, but how do we decide the science and the fact and stuff that there are fossils that are millions of years old and all that stuff?
You see, Isaac,
So you can
I
still
was
believe-
hoping you're coming tonight.
Because
I want to talk about
you can
this
still
tonight,
believe
yeah.
it. You can still believe in Hashem and everything,
Yeah.
and also kind of in a way believe in all
Okay.
that too.
Very good. Very good. So this is a beautiful question, and it's a beautiful question because I think that it's really worth addressing. The question was, there are lots of fossils in
A bunch of
the
different things.
right in the ground. Fossils meaning we have paleontologists that have gone, they dug up different places and they found bones of ancient creatures, and they look, like certain things, and they look like dinosaurs, etc., and all that, and they really have found lots of it. I was so upset one time. I used to go to the Museum of Natural History as a kid, and you walk in and you see this huge Tyrannosaurus Rex thing. I always was under the impression that they found each one of those bones in the ground.
Yeah.
A lot of them are assumed. A lot of them are not real.
Okay.
Some of them are, some are not. I didn't know that, and it made me really mad. Because as a child, I always thought that they had each one of them. But okay.
But they do have other things like turtles that they have all the bones and stuff. and
Okay, that's great.
alligators or
I
whatever.
was just expressing a childhood
Yeah.
frustration.
Okay.
Anyway, so at any rate, so you find these things in the ground, and the big question that everybody always wants to know is, you have this parasha here, and it doesn't mention anything about these things. So where is it? Right? I think that's the big question here that a lot of people want to ask on Parashat Beresheet. Good question.
Wait, can we just follow up?
Sure. Yes.
Are we saying according to Parashat Beresheet or according to Torah, right?
Yeah.
We're saying the world is how old?
It doesn't give us a number. It doesn't give us a number.
Well, we know, like, for example,
We,
like
yeah,
3,500 years ago, we left Egypt, or 4,000 years, whatever it
Right.
is.
The
And how far
simple-
before that
the
is,
simple
then you could
understanding,
just work out the math, how far before. If we came to Egypt, it was Yaakov Avinu. And
yeah,
how much before Yaakov Avinu, Adam Arishon was born?
yeah,
Comes to Beresheet, so it comes out to like 6,000 years, right?
5,700.
around 5,783 years. That's this year, 57,
But from one
83.
end, we also believe that
Yeah.
the world is created more than
And it
5,700
says
years.
So that this is a very beautiful question. It's a big point of debate amongst the authorities. Do we say
Jewish
that
authorities?
yes?
Okay.
Do we say that it's 5783, that's the year since creation, and that's it, which is what many want to say? Or do we say something else, which is that the time that we have is usually based on sun and moon, lunar calendar, solar calendar. And what some want to say is, the first few days, they didn't exist yet till the fourth day of
Yeah,
creation.
there could be a hybrid approach.
So you could have, let's say, day one taking a very long time, or day two taking a very
Right,
long
that's what
time,
I believe
right?
personally.
Okay, so that is another explanation that's given. So let's try and sort things out. There's a lot of stuff going on. Okay, so let's take it step by step. So, number one, the question about how long is the world? How long has it been in existence? So, like I said, some want to say that it's exactly to this year, 5,783 years. The question that everybody asks on that is that if you look at, for example, these fossils that they find, so you see that they're ancient, they do what they call carbon dating on it, and it comes out to be, millions of years old. And if that's what you're going to do, and you see it's millions of years old, well, that very much contradicts what we're saying, that's 5,783 years. Problem, right? So one solution could be to say, well, we don't really know how long the world has been here, because it could be that it's much more than that. Because like we said before, we don't know the sun and the moon for a few days, they weren't even around. It may have been here for a much longer time. That's one approach. There are a couple of other approaches that I want to share with you as well. The other approaches say something like this. One approach is to say that carbon dating is very flawed. Some come with the approach and they say, look, we did carbon dating on a bunch of things, fossils, and a few people did a study on carbon dating, and they did it for a beer can, and it also turned out to be, thousands of years old, and it was like Bud Light.
It's not 100%.
What?
It's not 100%.
One second. That's what they're trying to say, that the carbon dating to begin with wasn't necessarily that accurate in the first place. Some take that approach, and they say that all the other approaches are no longer necessary because the whole thing to begin with is off. That's what certain scholars want to say. I've heard them say that. Other scholars like to say, you don't even need to say that either. There's a much more basic explanation which is brought out through the words of Chazal. And that is actually quite an interesting discussion that they bring from the Gemara as well. And they bring a very interesting Gemara. The Gemara says, this is a Gemara Masechet Chagiga. It also comes up in Beresheet Rabbah, Tet Bet. Comes up in a bunch of places. It says that when Hashem created the world, it's very apropos Beresheet. It says that the world that we live on presently is built on a garbage dump. This world that we live, the Gemara tells us, this world that we live on is built on an ashpa. Ashpa is like a heap of garbage. Says the Gemara, what are you talking about? The Gemara answers, because when Hashem created the world, he was boneh olamot umachrivam. he would build worlds and then destroy them. Says a very interesting thing. The Gemara says, the Midrash over here that's being quoted says that V'hineh tov meod. Why does it say Hashem all of a sudden says, and this was very good? You know, what is the purpose very good? The answer is that there were other versions that weren't as good.
So many.
V'hineh tov meod. This one, tov meod, very good. So it could very well be that there were millions of years of things that were taking place, and they did exist, but Hashem destroyed it and built again, destroyed it. So it says that Hashem's words are "V'amar den hanyan li." This one I like, v'den, and this one lo hanyan li. I don't like this one. Boneh olamot u'machriva. Now, what you gain with that explanation is that that's also a good answer, in my opinion, for the dinosaurs, right? You have an answer for the dinosaurs because now what it's saying is that, yeah, we live in a world that really there were things here beforehand. They did roam, and they did, but our world was created on top of that one, on the garbage dump.
So
It's a very interesting concept.
that satisfies that. Let's just say, for example, like we know Egypt was in this world that we live in. And we have artifacts that are 15 and 20,000 years old. No?
From Egypt?
I think so. I could be wrong.
That I don't know.
I'll double check.
That I don't know. Yeah, Egypt, well, we have, of course, we have artifacts.
That are more than 5,000 years
No,
old.
that I don't know. We have could be from, that I can't tell you. It could be. We have to look it up.
We had this conversation long time ago with Rabbi Mizrahi, about that, so whatever you said,
Okay.
because we had a different world.
Uh-huh.
But someone he asked a question, said, we said Hashem is perfect. So how come Hashem make a world and it destroy it?
It's a great question.
Hashem
Beautiful question.
Hashem didn't
Very
know.
good question. So the question that Mr. Ibrahimi just asked beautifully is, what's the concept of, I'm just repeating for the guys on Zoom, what's the concept that Hashem would create something and then destroy it? Well, it's as if it's like, trial and error. You try this, didn't work, you try that. Hashem doesn't make mistakes, right? So it's a great question. So the truth is, actually, at the end of the parasha, this question was asked by Rabbi Tzadok Kohen of Lublin. Rabbi Tzadok Kohen of Lublin asked this exact question at the end. Take a look at the end of the parasha. Let's go, we'll jump to the end very quickly, where Hashem decides in the maftir at the end of the parasha. It says, Vayar Hashem ki rabba ra'ata adam ba'aretz. Hashem sees that the wickedness of man is very big. The kol yetzer machshavot libor rak ra kol hayom. All he's doing is thinking bad, evil all day, meaning his body pulls him to do things that he's not supposed to do.
The whole free will.
Sure. Vayinachem Hashem. Then it says Hashem reconsidered ki asa et adam, that he made man on earth. Vayit'atzev elibo, and he had heartfelt sadness. And we look here and we say, what? Hashem reconsider. What does that mean? Is Hashem going, oops, I made a boo-boo? Right? And then Hashem says, okay, I'm going to bring a flood. What's going on? Yeah, Hashem doesn't say oops. We say oops. We make mistakes, not Hashem. So, very interesting answer from Rabbi Tzadok Kohen. He says that everything that Hashem does in the parasha is in order to be an example for us. Hashem, so to say, shows us that he can reconsider doing something. He can turn around and say, you know what? That's not good. I want to change it. Not that he made a mistake and didn't think about it from the beginning, but Hashem is trying to set an example for us that if Hashem is doing that, then we should do that too. We shouldn't always think, oh, I'm perfect. For example, we see that Hashem did that in the beginning of the parasha when it was time to create man. What does it say? Na'aseh Adam b'tzalmenu kidmutenu. Let us make man in our image. And Rashi asks, who's us? Right? What us? So Rashi says the malachim. He's talking to the angels that he already created. So what do you have to ask them for? You're God. You don't ask them. You're the boss. You decide what you want to do and what you don't want to do. right? Exactly. Hashem is trying to teach us humility, that you should always do things in a way that's humble, right? That's why he says, let us do it. Let us make men. You need to ask permission, or not, he's not asking permission, but you need to ask. Why? He's trying to teach us humility. Here too, he's trying to teach us it's possible to build a whole world and then get rid of it. You made a mistake. To build it again, and that's also no good. Make it perfect. Aim for perfection. It's possible that you created a whole humanity and now you need to wipe it out. It's a lesson for us. It's not Hashem making a mistake. It's Hashem teaching us how to understand life.
It wasn't one or two words. It was so many different words Hashem
Yeah.
created and he destroyed.
Correct.
So
Correct.
if it was one,
That's the point. That's the point. That
That's
sometimes you
every
try
time.
this, doesn't work. You try this, also doesn't work. So you keep trying. It's a lesson for us to learn.
He even wanted to destroy the whole Jewish people so many times when they came out of Egypt. And
Yes.
every time Moshe said, no, don't do it.
Right.
So
Yes, he did want to destroy the Jewish people. That's very true. And he knew, and that was also a point for us to learn. And that we should see that instead of Moshe going, yeah, let's get rid of them once and for all, no more complainers. Moshe said, no, God forbid, we have to pray for them. We have to give them a chance. Exactly.
so with
Okay.
Hashem, he being a Mabul in Noah, right?
Okay.
Only 3-4 people with the wife, his wife, the wife, there were like 8 people, right?
Mhm.
So why Hashem didn't do the other war?
I don't know. I don't have an answer why Hashem just didn't start all over. I can't tell you. I mean, the answer the Torah gives is V'noach matza chen ben Hashem. Hashem loved him. Hashem thought he was very good. He was ish tzaddik, tamim. So he saved him. So it's kind of like a new world, but this guy I like. That's what it sounds like. At any rate, let's go back to Beresheet. So now, we have over here this question about the dinosaurs, which comes up. So I found a beautiful explanation from the Netziv. Netziv Rabbi Naftali Tzvi Yehuda of Berlin, the Rashiva of Volozhin. He addresses this question. He says a very interesting thing. He says, in his opinion, what happened is that these creatures existed. They existed together with men. Well, I don't want to misquote him, so I'm going to tell you exactly how he says it. He says, these, he says, these, in Ha'amek Davar, he writes this, these bones that they're finding in the ground, this is written probably around 100 and some 100 and maybe 20 years ago or so. It says, these are from before the days of the flood, ואף על גב שנמצאים באקלים שאינם חיים שם, זה נעשה לפי ששינו את דרכם על הארץ לפני המבול והלכו למקום אחר. He says, I'm sorry, ומה שמוצאים בריות משונות, that we find these creatures, these very interesting creatures, these dinosaurs, who, he says, look at this very interesting thing, ממה שהרכיבו שני מינים שונים ונולדו על ידי זה בריות משונות. He says, what happened is, they were taking animals and crossbreeding them. Just like you have, for example, a mule, which is a combination of a donkey and a horse, right? I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Right?
Even a fruit,
Right?
they use.
They crossbreed it, right?
Wait,
Right.
who was crossbreeding with?
People.
Dinosaurs?
No. People are crossbreeding animals.
Yes.
Part of the crossbreeding was actually able to create these dinosaurs. That's what he's saying. They were crossbreeding different types of species. Some of them became very big. That's how that's how he learns.
Who was crossbreeding?
People. So he says, for example, like when I went one time to the zoo in Houston, they had a zonkey. It's a combination of a donkey and a zebra. They call it a zonkey. So it's a new species. So he says Hashem didn't want that in the teva. Because Hashem created species, and Hashem didn't want the crossbreeds. Hashem wanted the original species that he had created. So therefore, these things were not allowed into the teva. So that's why they got wiped out with the flood. Now the question that he asks is though, but it says in the Torah in Parashat Noach, "Vayimach et kol hayikum," which means that Hashem melted everything away. Meaning we don't find anything left over from it. Everything melted away. How come you find this? So he answers because Hashem wanted us to find these things so that we could, so to say, uncover the secrets of creation. I'll read you his words. He says, "Hayta hashgacha sheishtayru atzamot elu." It was Hashem's divine providence that these things should be left over. Kedei sheyavod dor acharon, in order that the later generations should come. Veyakir sitrei hateva, and they should come to know the secrets of nature. V'zehu kvodo yitbarach, and this is the honor of Hashem. In other words, that we should come at a later date. We should look at this and we should be able to say, wow, this is what happens when you do these types of things. That it causes these massive things to come out. Nature comes out, right? And these things take place. Hashem wanted us to see this. So it's a very interesting thing about the dinosaurs. And where are they over here? Yeah.
That's two different animals or
crossbreeding them. This is the explanation of the Nitziv.
But in Noah's time also it was the same thing. Noah also the different animals they would go together. Why we didn't have that big animal like a big animal like dinosaur?
That's what he's saying. They were there.
No, it's in Noah's time.
Yeah, and then the flood wiped them out. Hashem didn't let them go on the Teva. Yes. Noah's time, exactly. Hashem didn't want them on the Teva because they were a crossbreed. Hashem wants the pure breed. Interesting thing. That's his explanation. I wanted to share that with you. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Good. So now, very interesting. I wanted to just share with you a couple of more things about the creation that you see that the rabbis really had a tradition from, it must be a divine source for the knowledge that they had. And it's really quite amazing. I'll start off with this. We know that the world is round, right? Kind of like, through today, modern science shows that it's planets, it's a sphere, right? We know that. But it wasn't till maybe a few hundred years ago when Christopher Columbus was looking for a shorter way to India to get pepper and spices and things like that, a faster route, where he decided you're not going to fall off the earth. It's a round circle. You keep going that way, eventually you come around this way, right? Until then, they didn't really know that. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to read you a portion of the Zohar, okay? Word for word Zohar. Literally, I copied it word for word, and I'm going to read you what the Zohar says, and the Zohar was written by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. It's a long time before Christopher Columbus. And just listen to his words, it's wild. He says like this, Kol Yeshuva, the whole world, mitgalgela be'igula kekadur. It rolls in a circle like a ball. Ilen letata, there are these that are on the bottom, meaning these people are on the bottom of the circle, on the bottom of the ball. The ilen le'ela, and there are those that are on top of the ball. The kol inun biryan mishanyan bechezvayhu mishinu yadeavira. Look what he says. All the people are different in their appearance based on the climate, the air that they live in. They all look differently. Kefum kol atar ve'atar, like according to each and every place. Ve'alda, and regarding this, it atar b'yeshuva kad nahir le'ilen. There are some places where it's sunny for these people. Chashich le'ilen, it's dark for those people. Le'ilen yemama, for these people it's daytime. Le'ilen lelia, for the other people it's nighttime. V'it atar, there is a place, the kulia yemama, that's all day. He says there's a place that's all daytime. And it only has a little bit of night every day.
Smart guy.
Smart guy. It's the Zohar from
2000.
from about, I mean, it's like 2,000 years old. You understand what we're saying? Now, how does Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai know this? I don't know. Maybe he knew science better than everyone else. I don't know.
Fantastic.
But it's not. It doesn't end there. It doesn't end there. Let me show you what the Gemara in Masechet Rosh Hashanah on Daf 25a, page 25a. It says an amazing thing. The Gemara talks about the creation of the Gemara talks about the orbit of the moon around the earth. This is amazing. It's really, really special. It says like this. Rabban Gamliel told all the rabbis, Kach mekublani mi bet Aviyaba. The case was that there were people that were trying to say that Rosh Chodesh was on this and that day. Now Rabban Gamliel questioned them and they didn't find anything that was particularly off, but he refused to accept their testimony. And he said, I'll tell you why. Because I have a tradition from my father, and he had from his father. The tradition was that en chidusha shel levana pchuta, there's that the orbit of the moon is never less than 29 yom umechza, 29 and a half days, u'shnei shlishei sha'a, 2/3 of an hour, 40 minutes, v'shiv'im v'shlosha chalakim, and 73 chalakim, which is another few minutes.
This is one of the things that it's proven that
he says it to the second. He's saying it to the second, less than a second. He's saying it to the. I mean, it's an amazing thing. He's saying, I have a tradition from my father, and he had from his father, right? So you're asking me why am I not accepting the witnesses? Because they're liars. I know it's not true. They didn't see the new moon because it's too early. I know how long it takes. I have a tradition from my father. He has from his father. That's it.
Now they find it.
Yes. Yes. That this is what it is.
So this is
So again,
like
this is the Gemara in Masechet Rosh Hashanah again from 2,000 years ago. We have the same Talmud. This is so you ask yourself, well, how do they know these things? How did they know these things? Did they know science? It's possible. Maybe they knew science. There were scientists, but it's very precise. It's extremely precise. Another big one about the creation, about when Hashem created the different things in the world. It's quite amazing. It says the Kadosh Baruch Hu created all the fish in the ocean, right? Fish. So it says in the Gemara, and actually in a Mishnah in Masechet Chulin, every fish that has scales has fins. Kol sheyesh lo snapir, yesh lo kaskes.
it's another
If it has scales, it has fins. You could have a fish that has fins but doesn't have scales. But you should know if it has scales, it has fins. It's a statement that is a blanket statement. And that statement requires a lot of guts. You know what that means? You have to have.
So you're pretty much saying all fish have fins.
I don't know if all fish have fins. I'm saying it's just,
Or we just
saying a
said the ones
statement.
with scales have fins, and the ones with fins cannot also have scales. So that means all fish have fins.
Why is it saying that? It's saying that there are some fish that have scales. You should
That
know
all have
those
fins.
all have fins. You should know that there are some fish that have fins, but they don't have
That
scales.
means all fish have fins.
Yeah, it could be.
Why?
But they're not scales.
said all
They don't
fish
have both of them.
fins.
No, it's not. It doesn't look. It doesn't talk about fish. The words of the Mishnah are like this.
Okay, you
Kol-
have water snakes and eels. They don't have fins.
Again, it's not. It's not talking about fit. It's not talking about particular fish. It's saying anything that has scales
Has fins.
has fins, right? Now, that statement is a very big statement, right? Because if you find me something that has scales and doesn't have fins, it's a big problem. Amen?
We're saying all fish have fins.
No, not all fish.
Why do you say all fish have fins? Maybe there are some fish without fins.
However, said the fish that has fins,
You know what I'm saying?
possible, but they don't have scales.
Okay, I have to do Arvit. Okay.
All
No
fish-
problem.
All fishes that
You-
have
you-
fin, have scales, have fins. But not all fishes that have fins have scales.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
So all fish have fins.
Every fish has a fin.
It's not saying that fish are limited to just having fins, just saying that those that have scales have fins, but
Some
not necessarily.
fishes have scales, some fishes don't have scales,
Right.
but they all have fins.
I don't know why you're saying that.
What kosher fish has to have? I'm sorry, Rabbi.
What?
What is a kosher fish?
It has to have fins and scales, right? It has to have fins and scales, both. Anyway, I mean, whether or not it's saying that or not.
They all have fins.
Whatever, okay. But when you know that was told that if you have a fish that has both of them, it's kosher.
If it has
I
both of them, it's
said
kosher, correct. So let's continue.
2,000 years ago, something
Right.
like that.
I saw something this time around. We'll get back to that a little bit later. I saw something really this time around that I thought was quite amazing. This one was really mind-boggling. I never saw this before until preparing for our shiur tonight. But take a look at this. This Gemara over here, I think actually I might have seen this before, but I didn't remember it till now. The idea is like this, guys. There's a sugya in Masechet Bechorot Daf Chet Amud Aleph. It talks about a different type of fish. This is pretty wild. It says, Hadulfinin parin v'ravin kibnei adam. There's a different type of creation called dulfinin. Sounds very much like the word dolphin. Okay? Now, if you look over here, says the Gemara, my dulfinin, what are these dolphins? Amar of Yehuda, b'nei yama, sons of the sea. It's talking about sons of the sea. What are sons of the sea? Let me read to you what Rashi says. This is pretty amazing. Rashi says, b'nei yama, dagim yesh bayam, there are fish in the sea, shechetzian tzurat adam, half of their body is a man, v'chetzian, and the other half tzurat dag, and the other half is a fish. Says Rashi, ubelaz, in the foreign language, Saryana. Now, in Greek mythology, they're called the sirens. These types of men-like fish. The interesting thing. So the Gemara says over here that there is a creature that Hashem created, and they reproduce like humans. Now Rashi says over here an interesting thing. She'im ba adam alehem, that if a person, let's say a male, a regular human, would mate with one of these female fish, that's like partially fish, partially female, mitaburot temenu, they would actually become pregnant from the man. I don't know exactly how that would work, but that's what this Gemara is saying. So Hashem created all these types of things. Now you say to yourself, well, this is kind of like a little bit far-fetched. What?
Did they see such a creature?
Oh, so that's exactly what I wanted to share with you
Like
next.
the movie, like the man, the girl, ladies,
Yeah.
she goes inside the thing, she becomes a fish, she comes out.
But I don't know exactly how it works, but I'm going to
At
read
the
you
bottom
something
of
wild.
the
You think to yourself, well, this is kind of a little bit far-fetched, but first of all, Rashi is saying this is what the Gemara is telling us. And over here, I saw an amazing thing. One of the great commentaries on the Talmud, actually, what he did was he kind of made like a dictionary with entries, like, this word in the Gemara means this word in the Gemara means that. His name was Rabbeinu Natan Baal Ha'aruch. He was one of the famous commentaries that actually was a big posek. He was a very big posek, and he was earlier than, like, before Rashi, before Tosafot, very, very early. So he says an amazing thing. He says they told him about a particular king from Denmark and Norway that was once on a boat, and his officers told him that he has to look over there. He's going to see something miraculous, and they saw this fish, but the king turned and looked at it, and he wasn't able to see it on time. It already went back inside because it heard them, talking. And he went himself and asked this king, the Aruch himself asked the king, "Is this really true?" And the king didn't answer. So he says that he understood from him that he didn't actually see it himself. But everybody that was there said they saw it, and they also said they found something like that in Constantine. This is the Aruch talking. If it's a random Joe Schmo, then I wouldn't really even bring it up. But if it's Rabbeinu Natan Baal HaAruch, which is one of the most important commentaries that teaches us Gemara, what each word means, it's like, whoa, he's like really thinking that this is legit, which is an amazing thing. He says, you should believe what he's saying. I have to admit, it's hard for me to believe, but I think that they're telling the truth. Rabbeinu Baal HaAruch.
There's another
It's
creature
an
in
amazing
the
thing.
sea.
Well,
There's another creature in the sea.
another creature in the sea, which is quite, I have to say, I don't know what everybody else thinks about this, but it's quite fascinating. And there are others that bring down this concept as well. So there's really a lot. There's so much to say over here. These are all chidushim for me in the parasha. So I thought that it was interesting to talk about. Another thing that I think is always interesting to talk about in the parasha is something that I have a big question mark. I don't have a good understanding of it. Maybe you guys could help me out. Hashem says in the beginning something which I'm sure you're all familiar with. Vayomer Elokim, Tadshe haaretz deshe, let the earth give forth grass. Esev mazria zera, right? Vegetation that's going to produce fruit and seeds. Etz peri ose peri lemino, fruit trees that make fruit for their different types of species. Asher zar obo. Vatotze haaretz deshe, so the land gave forth this grass. Esev, vegetation, mazria zera, that gives forth fruit, lemineu, for its species. Ve'etz oseh peri, and fruit and trees that make fruit. Asher zar obo, that the seeds are inside of the fruit. Lemineu, all different types. Rashi brings down a midrash over here, which is really startling. It says over here, Hashem said that it should be an etz peri, which means a tree that has the taste of the fruit that it produces. Okay? A tree that has the taste of the fruit that it produces. So in other words, if you go to the fruit, you taste an apple. If you would take a bite out of the bark of the wood, you would also taste apple. That's what it's saying over here, right? Okay? Now, what happened? Vatotze haaretz deshe esev mazria zera lemineu ve'etz oseh peri. It's not what happened. The tree did not end up tasting like the fruit. The tree made fruit, but the tree rebelled against Hashem and decided not to taste like the fruit.
So then,
that's the midrash. I'll read you the Rashi inside. It says like this: Etz peri, Hashem decreed, sheyehe tam ha'etz ketam ha'pri. I want that the taste of the wood should be like the taste of the fruit. Vehi, but the tree lo astaken didn't do that. Ela, rather, vatotze haaretz, but rather the earth gave forth etz oseh peri, a tree that makes fruit, velo ha'etz peri, but not a tree that itself is fruit. Lefichach, for this reason, kishenitkalel Adam al avono, eventually when Adam was cursed for his sin, nifkeda gam hi al avona, so then Hashem also cursed the land for not producing trees that the tree itself is a fruit. And it got cursed also. So Hashem threw the book at the earth as well for not producing this type of tree. I will tell you, I'm reading this and I'm like, this is really hard to understand.
So, two things comes to my mind.
Yes.
If the tree would taste like the fruit, therefore we won't need the fruit. We could eat the tree.
Right.
And then if the tree would taste like the fruit, then people or whoever would cut the tree and eat it as a fruit. So therefore there would be no more tree, no more fruit.
I hear. So
If
you're saying
they
that's
both-
why the
If
earth.
they both taste the same.
Right. So the
So
earth decided
if I
this would be a
keep
bad
on-
idea. The tree has to stay tree so that you can keep producing
Yes,
fruit. Right,
So
okay.
If I take all the apples and not the bark tastes like an apple, now I'm gonna cut the bark.
Cut the bark
If
and
I
then no
cut
more
the
tree.
bark, then I'm gonna cut the trunk.
I
And
hear.
if I cut the trunk, there is no more tree.
It's very logical. It's a very logical explanation that you're giving. The only thing is, how could you go against what Hashem said? How does the earth have the ability to do that? It's an interesting thing, no?
That's different.
Yeah.
story.
Right? That's what was bothering me, at least. I had that as an issue. But yes, it's a logical thing to understand. Trying to see that would be the reason for why not to do that. Okay, guys. I mean, there's endless amount of things we could say over here on the parasha, but maybe we'll call it a night over here today. Thank you very much, guys. Unless you guys have any questions, you can take them now.
Rabbi, how do you know Zohar? Like, how do you understand?
Huh?
How did you learn Zohar?